Hi all, welcome back to the final whistle then for another stream, and yeah, we're going to be joined by the Athletics' Rob Tanner to get the latest and the lowdown on the managerial vacancy at Leicester City. It has been reported today that the Foxes are believed to be close to Ruud Van Nistelrooy. We'll chat with Rob about him. We'll chat about Carlos Corberán. We'll chat about Steve Cooper as well to get Rob's thoughts on the sacking of Steve Cooper. We'll see what TalkSport have had to say regarding the owner as well, regarding why he sacked Steve Cooper and what the plans are for the new manager coming in. We'll look at Lee Carsley, another name who's been mentioned today as well. We'll look at the odds as well with Rob regarding the favourite being the leading candidate is Ruud Van Nistelrooy. But guys, as always, hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't already to the final whistle. It would help me out massively if you can do that. Let's see who's in the chat then. Hello, Jack. Be rude not to watch tonight's stream. See where you've gone with that, Ross. Hello, Kyle. How are you? Hello, Bradley. Hello, Ray. Evening, Tro. And how are you, mate? I'm all right. What happened to your appointment, Jack? I had the footage of your press conference. Did you hand in the resignation? Ross, I just didn't feel I was up for the job, mate. Maybe Rob might be up for the job. He might want to mix a bit with the club and do the Athletic at the same time. Write reports on the touchline and get a good feel of what's going on the pitch. But evening, Dawn, and evening, Kyle. Let's get the main man in, my guest at this time, Mr. Rob Tanner. Rob, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. Another eventful period in the history of Leicester City, covering it's never dull.
No, it's always a roller coaster, isn't it, Rob, when you cover Leicester?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no respite. There's no downtime. There's always something going on.
Before we kick off the stream, Rob, let everybody know what you do at the Athletic, mate.
I'm the Leicester City correspondent. This is the 16th season, covering it for the Leicester Mercury and now the Athletic. Do all the bits and bobs like ghost busting at Swindon's training ground and the World Conquer Championships for the Athletic, but predominantly the main job is covering Leicester.
Fantastic. Bradley's saying, why don't the club tell us anything? Well, the club like to keep it under wraps, don't they, Rob? Obviously, you hear more than obviously the fans itself, being a reporter and that. But let's rewind it back to Sunday. Sunday evening, the news comes about Steve Cooper departs Leicester City after Leicester decided to sack him. Talk to me how surprised you was with that.
Yeah, I was surprised at the timing, coming Sunday afternoon after that game, because logically you'd think if they'd already decided to make a change, they would have done it in the international break and given themselves a bit more time to bring a new man in. But no, they gave him the last game, and I think that was just the final straw. I think there was a number of issues that were of concern internally. The disconnect between Cooper and the fans. I mean, we saw that very early on. There were a lot of fans that just weren't having him as manager, and we saw it at Walsall. Then we heard it again at Manchester United before the international break. He just couldn't seem to win the fans over with his style of football. I think equally, whilst the players, there was no issue with the players in terms of them not liking him. You know, he's a very likable guy. He's a very nice guy. But they just didn't 100% believe in his methods. It's very different to what they used to under Enzo. It was a bit of a contrast for them, and they really enjoyed working in Enzo's system. So this new system, so when you go out and you've got a game plan, you don't believe 100% in that game plan, you can't execute the game plan. No. And I think that was an issue as well that they were becoming aware of. And I also think a little bit, you know, he's quite he can be quite a bullish character on certain topics, certainly officials and PGMOL and, you know, that sort of thing. And I think I think the club wanted him to rein that in a little bit, but he still came out all guns blazing after the game on Saturday, so against Chelsea. But I think there was just a disconnect in all areas. It just wasn't the right fit. He walks away. Obviously, he's got to have his contract paid up. He was only 12 games into a 3-year deal. And I think because he only got 12 games, I don't think his reputation is massively damaged by it. But I think Leicester have probably been damaged more than anybody because it's such a big appointment to make, and to pull the trigger after just 12 games says it all in terms of, they got it wrong, and they've got to get the next one right.
Yeah, they have. Obviously, we'd have thought that in the summer, wouldn't we, Rob, when we spoke about it after Enzo left. They always had to go for a manager with the same style that the players are suited to. They've done a whole 360 and gone with Steve Cooper, and you're thinking, what kind of path are we going to take here then with Steve Cooper? The fans are just from the off, aren't they? They didn't want him, and some would say, yeah, we'll give him a chance, like you have to when a new manager comes in. But you talk about Top. He was very, they say, reserved regarding the appointment of Steve Cooper. Do you feel Top wasn't 100% convinced? Obviously, John would have been the one who appointed Steve Cooper as manager. How do you think Top kind of looked at it over Steve Cooper's very short reign?
Well, Top does make the final decisions.
Yeah.
He is a hands-on chairman in that effect. Obviously, he spends quite a bit of time away because he's got massive business interests with King Power. But the club is under his name now, so he is the man. It's his baby, and so he's got to be hands-on. He has John as his football advisor and the head of the football operation of the side of the game of the club. Sorry, Susan Whelan runs the business side. But John is the advisor, so he would be suggesting to Top that perhaps Steve Cooper would be the right fit. I have to say it was a very difficult summer for them, both in terms of recruiting the manager and the players, because of that PSR situation and the prospect of having points deductions, making it even harder to re-establish the club in the Premier League, and that would have put off a lot of potential managers and also the players when they were trying to get people in when Cooper was actually appointed. So that hampered them in a way. But I think they went with Cooper ultimately because of the job he did a couple of years ago in keeping Forest in the Premier League at the first attempt. And they had a worse start than Leicester have had. So, but I think they just saw that it wasn't going to get much better. And there were signs that concerned them from what I can gather. And they decided not to let it linger now, to act and learn from the lessons from 2 years ago when it was going in one direction under Brendan and they didn't do anything after the World Cup. And they let that go on because they had total faith that Brendan could turn it around. It was obvious it wasn't. And they left it too late then to bring somebody in for survival because nobody wanted to come in and potentially have relegation on their CV.
Yeah, I think you've always got to give Top credit for this, haven't you? To get it moved on early rather than letting it linger the way he did with Brendan. Ross says everyone that's not a Leicester fan is shocked that we've sacked him. I mean, what do you say with some of the things you've heard regarding what's come out from other media outlets regarding the shock and the sacking? I to be fair, I just don't think they understand a Leicester fan's perspective. Fans who go every week and watch rather than fans who, from other clubs who don't really see Leicester on a weekly basis. I think they've just gone off table and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, well, I don't think. I mean, in terms of the fans that I speak to, I don't think it's so much that the Forest connection. I mean, the fact that he was beloved by Forest fans. I mean, that might be a small part of it for some, but the ones I speak to, it's just they didn't see what the game plan was. They weren't engaged with him. They didn't like the style of football. They didn't find it entertaining. I mean, first 30 minutes against Chelsea when they were pegged so deep, all they could do was just clear their lines and then try and relieve the pressure, and then the pressure would come straight back on them. And I mean, they didn't lay a glove on Chelsea for the first 30 minutes, and then they did create a couple of chances before half time when they came out. So I think Leicester fans just want to see a team that's bold and aggressive and is going to have a go. And if they go down fighting, but at least they've shown a bit of fight. I mean, I have to say, I don't think you could tell by the performances that the players weren't playing for him or anything like that, like he'd lost the dressing room or I think you could see by the number of comebacks because they always conceded the first goal. The amount of times they had to fight back and did so. Southampton and Ipswich away, but most notably. So there was there's some fight in them and some resilience in them, but I just think they just didn't settle into what they were being asked to do, having the hangover of the Enzo era. Some of those players were just so wedded to that principle, and where every detail was mapped out for them, didn't have to think. If you're in this position in this pitch, in this scenario, you pass here. If that pass isn't on, you pass there. That's it. Cooper had a philosophy where, look, we'll have a structure from the back, but when we get into the final third of the pitch, then it's your responsibility to make the decisions. The responsibility is on you. There's a freedom to go and do and express yourselves. And I think some of these players may have been a little bit resistant to it at first, and others were uncomfortable with that. So it just didn't work. I don't think it was a lack of effort or anything like that. I don't think there was massive fallouts behind the scenes. I know him and Yannick didn't see eye to eye on occasions, but Yannick was wedded to the Enzo system because he thrived in it. But this is a different way of playing now.
Nick Moore talks about Top with trusting Rudkin and Whelan. Obviously, Top's now become more hands-on, hasn't he, with the approach of getting the new manager in, picking it himself and this, that and the other. Does that show kind of a lack of trust in what he has in them and getting the right person? Obviously, they brought in Cooper and that, and obviously kept Brendan for a period of time, longer than he probably should have stayed at the club. But do you think that's kind of a little issue regarding Top now and why he has took full control in getting this new manager?
Well, he hasn't taken full control. It's still the same process. John will be drawing up, he would have already drawn up a list of people that they will try and speak to. And that probably would have started even before they decided to part ways with Steve Cooper, just to test the water and see who's interested, who's not interested, who's viable, who isn't, who's expensive and who's not. Because that's another factor. You've still got the PSR thing looming over them like a dark cloud. So, they've got to be. They can't go out and do a Brendan Rodgers type contract and spend that much money to bring him in with all these backroom staff as well from Celtic. They're not in that position anymore. So that sort of work would have already started. As we speak, I'm sure John has been speaking since the Sunday. He's been speaking to potential candidates and seeing if they want this challenge, because again, it's going to be a difficult one for whoever comes in, and there's no guarantee at the end of it they're not going to have a relegation on their CV, and we could still have issues with PSR later in the season. So that would have, but then what happens is once they've got down to like 2 or 3 that they think might be viable, then it would be Top that makes the final decision who he wants. There'll be an interview process as well. I mean, when Cooper got the job, he met with them a couple of times. He gave them a PowerPoint presentation about himself, about his style of play, his tactics. I think he really did a big sell on them and won them over. So there's opportunity for any of the candidates really to do that in this scenario.
Yep. Dawn talks about, I would have thought the club had someone lined up before they sacked Cooper.
Well, a lot of people have said that. I was assured that wasn't the case, but they, as I said, they would have still been looking at people beforehand and having conversations with their representatives in their camps to see if they did make a change, would they be interested. So I suppose that in a way that is lining somebody up, but I think we would have heard something really concrete if they had somebody lined up and ready to go. As soon as they pushed the button to bring them straight in, I think we would have heard something really concrete. It would have come out somewhere. I mean, that the game now, there is no, you can't keep secrets for very long. Everybody's information is everywhere now. So I think they're still very much in a process at the moment.
Yep. Scott says, can you discuss who is likely to be being looked at? Obviously, there's been a lot of names thrown about, aren't they? Graham Potter, David Boyes, who have obviously been rolled out. Obviously, Ruud Van Nistelrooy, Carlos Corberán, Lee Carsley, Michael Carrick's been mentioned as well along the line of yesterday. What's your initial reaction to Scott's comment?
Well, I think it's going to be somebody that's available now, not at a club. It's somebody that's available now. Probably somebody that's quite young, got a lot of energy, that can galvanise everybody, has got some experience of that top level football. I mean, I can see totally why Ruud Van Nistelrooy is so low in the in the odds. He's very short odds at the moment. He is somebody they've admired from when he was at Feyenoord, and obviously we saw the performance of his United team against Leicester at Old Trafford not so long ago, and his last game as caretaker manager there. So that is something that cannot be ruled out. Absolutely not. But I don't think he'll be somebody that's already in a club where they'll have to have protracted negotiations, have to have a fight to get them, have to pay compensation for him and his staff. It's not cheap changing manager. No. I mean, you look, when they made the £89 million losses in the 22-23 season, a portion of those losses were the payouts to Brendan and his staff when they decided to make the change. So I think the situation they're in with PSR still being something that they're going to keep an eye on. I think they'd rather get somebody in that's available and is reasonable in terms of their demands.
How quick of a process are Leicester looking to appoint a manager? I know some outlets have said they want to appoint one for Brentford. Do you think that's
quick as possible? Yeah, absolutely. It's quick as possible.
Or do you think they can get that done?
I think ideally they would like their man in by the weekend if they can. I mean, I think this will be an accelerated process. I don't. Well, you never say never, do you? He's available. But no, I think they'll look to try and make a quick appointment. They don't want this to drag on. They don't want the disruption. It's such an important part of the season now, running up to Christmas. And ideally, they'll have somebody for the Brentford game. But if it's not doable, then the caretaker will have to carry on do one more game, and then we'll see where we are next week. But as soon as possible.
What kind of style manager do you think they're going to go for? Obviously, Steve Cooper was different to Enzo. Do you think it'll be about stability and a bit of what Enzo did with the style of football he brought to the players, or do you think it'll be straight Enzo style of football? They'll look on approaching rather than a bit more of stability.
Well, it'll be a modern attacking style of football, but the biggest issue they have is defensively. Leicester are so open. I mean, they gift so many goals to teams. It's not difficult to score against Leicester. It's not like they defend stoically for 90 minutes. There's a rick in a few of them. I mean, Wout Faes two goals at least this season where he's directly contributed to goals against, and there's numerous others. If you pick the bones out, he's been pulled out of position, or he's gone walkabout, or he's lost concentration, but he's not the only one by any means. I don't mean to pick on Wout, but I think somebody's got to come in with a defensive structure first of all that's going to give them a base to then build on.
Yep. Ross says it could be Paul Joel. I mean, I think Paul Joel's long retired now, isn't he, Rob, since his Wigan days.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at what TalkSports had to say. They've said about Top will take more of a lead role in the club search for the new manager after being unimpressed by appointment of Steve Cooper. They then go on and say, with Potter again rolling himself out, Rob, former Manchester United interim boss Ruud Van Nistelrooy and West Brom's Carlos Corberán are two of the leading candidates to succeed Steve Cooper. Once the new man is in place, Top also plans to have a major input in recruitment when the January window opens, with funds expected to be made available to fund Leicester City's survival bid. Talk to me about that.
I don't think the process will change. I can't see Top having any more getting involved any more in this process than he has done in the past. He will work with John and Martin Glover as well, the head of recruitment, to try and bring the next man in. In terms of the January transfer window, Cooper was planning for that. He held meetings with Martin Glover and Rudkin to discuss what was needed in the window. There were going to be some funds available. There's going to have to be a little bit of wheeling and dealing. There's some of the deals that haven't worked already. I mean, like Odsonne Edouard, do they carry on with that, or do they just call time on that loan because he's not contributed at all yet? So that would make some room in the squad as well, because you can only register so many players and you can't carry somebody you're paying and they can't contribute. So, but they were planning and looking at the January transfer window. So I imagine there will be something that they'll try to do in the window, whether that be loans or that. But they certainly need a couple of recruits now. I mean, certainly with Abdul being out for the season, Ricardo 4 months, Ben Nelson, who Cooper was thinking of recalling in January from his loan at Oxford because he liked him so much and he was going to play him. And he's now out for 4 months as well. So there would have been some business done. In terms of Top getting heavily involved, he's also got a big business empire to look after as well. That's why he hires. I mean, that's why managers manage. They have people below them that do a lot of the work and feed into them. And it's a pyramid system. And he's the man at the top. And that's hence top. But, he won't. I can't see him getting his hands dirty and going out. And he will speak to the candidates. He does. He does meet them before they decide who they're going to offer the job to. But that hasn't changed.
No. Ross said, "Rest in peace to Neville."
Yeah. Thanks, Ross. Yeah,
very much. Talk to me about the story on Neville.
Nev's was a great guy, lovely
great
guy,
commentator.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you guys will know him a lot more than me. I mean, I came over 16 years ago, and Nev had just sort of doing bits and bobs with the microphone. In those days, he was sort of like semi-retired, but he always used to come to the games. He used to come with his son and just come and watch, and come and sit in the press room and have a chat with us and offer his opinions. And he was a lovely, lovely guy. And he's going to be. Obviously, we haven't seen him for a while because he wasn't in the best of health. But very sad news. Rest in peace, Nev. What a brilliant guy, and he'll be missed in the press room.
Yeah, covered some greatest moments during his time. Obviously, watching Leicester and commentated on that. Obviously, the Great Escape season, the title-winning season, Champions League, and all that. A real great guy. Great commentator, loved, and a Leicester legend. Let's touch on two managers that have been mentioned today. I'm going to start with this one. This is Footy Insider. I don't know how much you take out of Footy Insider, Rob, but they're reporting about Ruud Van Nistelrooy being close on the Leicester manager's job after reports be having talks today with the Leicester hierarchy over the job. Do you think that's closer than what they're suspecting, or how do you think
Well, put it this way. People around him have gone very quiet at this moment.
Okay.
Not a lot of information coming out from his camp.
Do you think that's a good thing, or do you think they're just keeping?
No, I think that's an indication that some conversations might be taking place right now. Personally, I mean, normally, the bit in these scenarios, the noisier the representatives of certain candidates is an indication that they're trying to put their candidate in the frame, so to speak. It's
linked with Hamburg as well, though, hasn't he? But
well, he will have options after the Man United stint. I mean, I know he's not covered himself in glory in the fact that he's associated with Erik ten Hag. But he did very well at Feyenoord. Turned down Burnley, I believe, as well, didn't he? So
beat Leicester on 2 occasions.
He will be particular about what job is a really important appointment for him, the next role, because he's got to be a success to cement his credibility as he's a coach in his own right. After success of Feyenoord, then not so much success at United. Now, will he fancy this one? How expensive will he be?
Steve said clickbait. It's how much you read into it, isn't it? I know a lot of people take a Football Insider by a pinch of salt. Sometimes they'll get it right. Sometimes you never.
Yeah, didn't they run something about Top going into the dressing room afterwards to have a meeting with the players after the Chelsea game?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the players were more interested in getting showered, dressed, and straight on a plane to Copenhagen so they could have their Christmas party. I mean, I heard them all leaving when I was still in the press room. So. Because there's loads of fans outside that shout for them to sign things and autographs and shirts and stuff. So no, I think that the lads made a pretty sharp exit after the game on Saturday, so they could go and have their party. But I can't imagine Top would be wandering into the dressing room straight after a game with all the Steve Cooper staff in there to consult them whether he thinks he should change the manager. I mean, Steve does was doing his post-match press commitments. Then he would tend to entertain the opposition manager and his staff in his office for a drink afterwards. a chat. I believe Enzo even went up and met Top and some of his former bosses as well. But in terms of like having a debrief in the dressing room straight after a game with the players, the owner, I mean, God, that's some of that Milan Mandaric territory. That.
Yeah. I think a new manager will be announced tomorrow. I think it'd be more towards like Thursday, Friday.
I don't know where it is at the moment. As I said, it's like radio silence at the moment. So exactly when or when or where, all I know is that they want to get this done quickly and they want to get somebody in ahead of Brentford, or even at least have them in the stand watching, so they can make an assessment, because it's really important that they make an assessment of what they've got to work with here. I mean, they can just watch the 12 games so far, really, to have a good understanding, but it's nothing like watching live, because you see so much more. Then they can start planning for January.
Talk to me about Carlos Corberán, one that's been mentioned again. Was linked with us in the summer, wasn't he?
Yeah, he is one that you do admire because of the style of football. I think Albion fans quite enjoy it.
How much is the buyout clause?
I don't know. I don't know how much the buyout clause is, but it won't be cheap. And this is my point. With PSR, having to pay off Steve Cooper with so much of his contract to pay off as well. It's going to be a few million quid, and then will that then tip them over the edge PSR wise? That's why I say they'd rather go for. I mean, the most important thing is to get the right man, and if he's the right man, then they've got to weigh that up. But I don't think they would like to then draw on the wrath of the Premier League and that, because they another PSR situation, because they've already done one, which is won that court case, which sort of embarrassed the Premier League and upset the EFL as well. So there are powers out there that are a little bit narked with Leicester at the moment, and they wouldn't need a second invitation to get involved again. So they've got to be careful. They've got to tread carefully in terms of PSR and finances.
Yeah, Steve goes on about Mancini. I mean, Mancini's only English club he played for was Leicester.
Yeah.
Would you like to see Mancini at the KP?
Oh, he's a big name, but I don't think he'd be cheap. He is a big name. He's got experience, and that whether he would be a success, I mean, Leicester have gone for two big profile named managers in the past with different fortunes. Sven-Göran Eriksson, Claudio Ranieri. So he'd be the third, wouldn't he? I mean, they have not been shy of trying those sort of names in the past. I remember when they were trying for Gus Hiddink before Claudio Ranieri. I mean, that would have been a major coup to get Gus Hiddink as Leicester manager. So
Terry Michael Carrick. I mean, Carrick's doing well at Middlesbrough, isn't he?
And again, they would probably fight to keep him. They like him. But yeah, he's another one that's been linked in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll have all of these guys on the radar, but what they've got to weigh up certain factors as well. And I do think the financial situation.
Ross said about Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, I did see that quote about his next job in England being a team in the bottom half, and I don't know whether he was talking tongue in cheek or whether he actually does really relish that sort of challenge, because I can't imagine he's ever experienced that in his career before. He's not exactly a firefighter like Neil Warnock or Sam Allardyce, is he? He's he's always been at the top end of the game in terms of the clubs he's been at and winning trophies. So he would be box office, and he'd cost as much as box office as well.
That's the thing, isn't it? You're going about what Nigel Pearson did at Leicester City with the media and that. I think Jose's that type of manager.
He blows hot and cold with the media. He can be charming and give you all the sound bites that you could possibly want, and the other times he can be incredibly frosty. No, I'd rather just have somebody who's on an even keel.
Yeah, fair point.
Ruud, did somebody just say Ruud player manager?
Because
I was just thinking this.
Ruud
in the car this evening, coming home, thinking, whatever happened to player managers?
Yeah,
used to see loads of player managers at one time. No, where player managers these days? I suppose it is too much to do in both jobs stay at the top of your game as a player, you got to be totally focused on that, and you can't be worrying about management and stuff like that. But
I know Vardy's in the betting.
Oh yeah, I noticed that as well. Jamie Vardy in the betting.
That could be one we could look at.
You know, an interesting thing that a lot of the managers and coaches that have worked with Jamie have said to us, sometimes privately, but sometimes on the record, that he's actually tactically very astute. He's not the character, you know, the swig the Red Bull and go with the fans and all that. Like, he's not, you know, he's not that sort of character, really. He's a thinker, deep thinker in the game. Before games, the last few sessions, he can't train 100% all the time because of his age, and he has to be managed. But he still comes out on the grass and watches everything they're doing, all the shape work they're doing, all the set pieces they're doing, all the prep they're doing. So he knows that he can go straight in. Whether he wants to go down, I don't know whether coaching and management is something he's overly interested in. I mean, I know he brought that club in Rochester in New York, and that didn't work for various reasons. But yeah, he still wants to stay in the game in some capacity, I think.
Terry's got a question for you. What's Rob's views on players revolting against managers?
I always think sometimes they make great headlines and stuff like that, and I don't think players actually do.
But I mean, do you think sometimes it's clickbait?
Yeah, I think sometimes these stories are just blown out. Look, there's always disagreements on a training ground, whether it be by teammates or somebody says something they shouldn't have said to a manager. But outright open revolts, you've got to be really careful with some of those things, because I did an interview with Michael Brighton when he decided he was leaving, hanging up his boots, and in fact, I met him on the day that Cooper was appointed, and we were talking about when Ranieri was sacked, and there was a report came out, I think it was the Sun, that said that he was one of the ringleaders in the efforts, the players' efforts to stab Ranieri in the back and get him out the club.
He come on that about one of the podcasts, didn't he? Was it Under the Cosh where he was on about that, where he said something about him, Vardy, and was it Schmeichel or Morgan? It was one of them, and they said that
they were the ringleaders.
They've gone to top. With him on the motorway or something.
Yeah, well, that's what that was the story he told me. That basically he was driving home. He went around the M69 M1 Island, got onto the M69, and if somebody was behind him flashing the lights at him, pulled alongside him, because obviously everybody knows what car he drives, and they tried to ram him off the road because they were so incensed about Ranieri. So you got to be really careful with some of these things. I mean, I think people are a bit wild and reckless with some of the accusations that hang around. Look, Cooper didn't get on with every single player, and whatever workplace you're in, you don't get on with everybody you work with. I mean, as I said, Yannick didn't really identify with what he was being asked to do in Cooper's system, and Yannick's one of those characters that can come across as a bit surly if he doesn't, if he's not happy, if he's not playing, or there's something that's narking him, he can be a bit sulky. I mean, obviously, famously had a fallout with Brendan over an interview that he did in Denmark and was banished to go and train elsewhere. So, but I don't think it's like that.
No, Footy Insider have just posted a few minutes ago that Leicester have opened new manager talks and are hopeful the new man will be in place for Saturday.
Yeah, I think they'd like to do that. I think that they would like to get somebody in. We've got the press conference. I think it's Thursday.
You come from Footy Insider, though, so like I said, take it or believe it.
Yeah, they would like to get somebody in as quickly as possible, and we've got a press on Thursday, so it'll be interesting to see who's sat behind the desk.
Yep. Let's have a look at Alex Crook. He came out today of Lee Carsley. I mean, reportedly a candidate, according to what Alex Crook's heard from his sources at TalkSport. Lee Carsley, I mean, took over from Gareth Southgate as interim before Thomas Tuchel came in, didn't he? Did well with the England squad, got a few wins in there, and is obviously good in England setup as well, isn't he? But do you think he'd be the type of manager we'd hire? Do you think he'd be good enough for club level?
Well, that would be a big risk, isn't it? Because he's never managed at club level. He's obviously a product of the pathway system, because I also do a bit of England. and I did the under-21s, and I've been to a few Carsley's England press conferences, and he's obviously a talented coach. He's a good coach. I mean, I know it went all awry with Greece at home when he decided to play 5 number 10s in the same lineup. But at least that was brave, he's like wedded to that system. He came in, did the interim job, and he kept saying, "Look, hopefully, I'm going to go back and do my under-21s job." And clubs have tried to get him before, and he's always stayed loyal to the FA. And again, you'd go through a process to get him out of that contract. Never say never, always, but I'd be a little bit surprised if it was Lee. He doesn't look comfortable in front of the cameras. He's much more comfortable on the grass. I mean, as we all saw the England warm-ups, he was out putting the cones out. You don't normally get England managers doing that. So, and there might be something because Tuchel's only signed to the end of the World Cup campaign, that they might say, look, in a couple of years' time, you might be ready to take over from Tuchel, because they do invest a lot in this pathway, and that's why a lot of people were surprised when they brought Tuchel in, because what's the point of investing in a pathway when none of the coaches are coming through?
Yeah. Let's have a look at the betting. I mean, I pulled it up. Ruud Van Nistelrooy is obviously leading the favourites for the bookies. I don't know how much the bookies would know regarding what's happening with Leicester regarding appointing him, but
they feed off reports. The bookmakers, the bookmakers feed off reports. So if one report comes out that from a credible source that says Leicester are in, they straight away cut their odds. I mean, I mean, I could be wrong, but I doubt the bookmakers have got people ringing agents and trying to get inside tracks on deals and things like that. A David Ornstein working for Bet365 would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because they've got Ruud Van Nistelrooy down as clear favourites as well. So, do you think really likely it could be Van Nistelrooy?
Van Nistelrooy is the only one at the moment where there seems to be some substance. Yeah, because we haven't heard real substantial reports anywhere about who they're after, and that's unusual. Normally, there's quite a few. I mean, obviously, the fact they've still got Potter and Moyes in that list in the top 4. So yeah, it'd be it's interesting, really. They normally go on the reports. Oh no. 10 to 1.
Rob,
5,000 to 1. I'm Mr. 5,000 to 1.
Rumours, Arsenal numbers too. Stuvenberg, is it?
So again, I mean, I've seen that one, but I know nothing really about that. But it could be somebody from left field. I mean, they went with Enzo. None of us really saw Enzo. No
one knew much about him apart from managing with Pep, though, did they, Rob?
No, exactly.
Enzo, and he come out of left field, didn't he? From
the
stock managers like that.
There's certain people that can feed into John, and they recommend certain clients or certain coaches, somebody that he may not be thinking of, and if that gentleman fancies coming, then there might be a possibility. It all depends, but I've not heard anything concrete on that one.
Fair enough. Rob, thanks for coming on, mate.
No problem.
Appreciate it. Let's see if it is Ruud Van Nistelrooy, and we'll see who's in the dugout by Saturday. But appreciate it as always. Plug the Athletic for me, Rob. Let them know what's going on. And
we're a website and app, football and all sorts of sports around the world now, owned by the New York Times, and you normally can get some pretty good deals on subscriptions. Sometimes just £1 a month.
Appreciate that. If anyone wants to go and check out the Athletic, if you haven't done it already, Rob does some good articles regarding Leicester City. Gives you a proper thorough detail in what he's seen and what he's heard. So if you go and check Rob's articles out, it'd be appreciated. But thanks for coming on, Rob. Do appreciate it, mate, and go and have a good rest of the evening.
Cheers. Thank you. See you later.
Later, Rob. That was Rob Tanner giving me a thorough chat on the Leicester City manager's vacancy. Will it be Ruud Van Nistelrooy? Who knows? Let's see what happens over the next coming days. As we look like we are looking to get someone in by the weekend. So Ruud Van Nistelrooy's favourite at the minute regarding the bookies and that. But will Ruud be heading to the King Power Stadium? Let's see what happens. But guys, if you've enjoyed this stream, hit that like button for me. There's 92 of you in, so I'd appreciate it if you can. Subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that. What's coming up on the final whistle then regarding everything Leicester City? So we'll have the match preview with Brentford on Thursday. I think Premier League Predictions is back. And then we'll be heading to Brentford on Saturday. So we'll have match day vlog out for that. But thanks for coming and joining us, everyone, tonight. Thank you to everyone getting involved. Really appreciate it. Take care and have a great rest of your evening, wherever you're up to. And keep it here at the final whistle. Hi all, thank you for watching the final whistle. If you enjoy all our content, please remember to smash a like, share and subscribe to the channel.